I think I just filmed like 10 minutes of this and I realized that I wasn't even recording audio. So, if I'm a bit annoyed, you will know why. Hi friends, today I'll be sharing my November wrap up with you all. November was a very good reading month because I finally got back into reading. It's very exciting for me. I read a total of 9 books in November. I have not read 9 books since the summer, so that's incredible. Yeah, let's go through the stats. Let's try and be effective for once. So I read 9 books in November. 6 of the books were targeted towards adults. 3 of the books were targeted towards young adults. If we look at format, 4 of the books I read were physical books, 1 book I read as an e-book, and 4 books were audiobooks. So I actually got back into reading audiobooks in November, which is quite surprising because I did not expect that I would listen to any more audiobooks. Audiobooks were something I got into because I used to drive back and forth to work. Obviously I can't read while I'm driving, so instead I started listening to audiobooks. But with my new job, I'm no longer driving. I can take the subway, I can take the bus. So there's really no need for me to listen to audiobooks because I can just read off the paper or on my phone. I don't need to focus on anything else. Kind of what I did for most of October, but then in November I started listening to audiobooks again. And I started listening to audiobooks when I'm cleaning, when I'm cooking, when I'm walking, like back and forth to the subway. That's actually very exciting that I picked up audiobooks again. And I feel like I picked up a bunch of audiobooks I actually really enjoyed. So hopefully this is a trend that will stay with me. If we look at rating, 2 of the books I gave 2 stars, 4 of the books I gave 3 stars, 2 of the books I gave 4 stars, and 1 book I actually gave 5 stars. And then if we look at genre, 4 of the books were fantasies, 3 of the books were contemporaries, and 2 of the books were romances. Let's just get to the books. The first book I read in November was The Deal by L. Kennedy. This was just a really good time. This is a college sports romance, or however you should phrase those words, college sports college. In this story we are following, I think his name is Garrett, or some dude. He's the hockey star of the campus, and he needs to ace his upcoming quiz or test or something. So he asks this very smart girl who aced her test to help him out, and in exchange they will sort of fake date in order to help her get another guy's attention. So it's sort of a fake dating trope, but not really, and she's initially in love with someone else, but obviously things might change. Yeah, this was just a really fun and entertaining read. It's very tropey. I really like the dynamics of the main characters and like the banter and their flirting and stuff. So I just had a really good time with this book. It was a lot of fun. I'm so glad I read it. I definitely want to continue with the series. Trigger warning for mention of rape and one of the main characters being a survivor of rape. I ended up giving The Deal 4 stars. The next book I read was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This is another 4-star for me. We're following Nora, who is very depressed in the beginning of the book, and she no longer wants to live. One night she ends up in this place called the Midnight Library, which is sort of a state between life and death. And in the Midnight Library, she gets to explore all of her what-if lives. What if she had ended up with that guy? What if she had taken that job instead? What if she had decided to become a professional swimmer? All of those life choices she gets to explore. This book is very depressing in the beginning, I would say, so you kind of need to be in the right headspace for it, but it does become very hopeful regarding life, regarding all of your what-ifs and regrets. I feel like all of us can sort of recognize ourselves in having what-if thoughts. What if I did this? What if I took that job? The final messages of these books were quite hopeful, and they made me feel better about my regrets and my what-ifs. If you can get through the first part, the trigger warnings for depressing stuff in the beginning, I feel like you can truly appreciate this book. It wasn't a wow experience for me, but I'm very glad I got to this book. Next book I read was Beach Read by Emily Henry. I've also been meaning to get to this one for a while. This was a very popular book last year. In this book we are following January, who is moving to this beach house that used to be her father's, and not only that, her father used to share that beach house with his lover while he was still married. January is also an author, but she's experiencing some writer's block. Next door lives Augustus, who is also a writer and is also experiencing a bit of a writer's block. Together they make a deal that they will switch genres. January writes more romance and rom-coms, Augustus writes more literary fiction and more hard-hitting and more thriller-like. So they make a switch and make this deal that they will help each other out by giving each other new experiences. This book was alright. It didn't really do much for me. The romance wasn't that exciting. The depressing and sad parts were not that depressing or sad. Like, I didn't really care. And there was nothing really about the characters that I connected to on a deeper level. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. The next book I read was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I actually listened to this one as an audiobook. I just got it as a physical book because I want to reread it. Yes! This story is about a boy who makes some sort of journey in the desert. We're following an Andalusian shepherd boy who yearns to travel in search of worldly treasure. His quest will lead him to riches far different and far more satisfying than he ever imagined. His journey teaches us about the essential wisdom of listening to our hearts, of recognizing opportunity and learning to read the omens strewn along life's path. I feel like this is a very religious and spiritual book in many ways, but I really appreciated the message of it. The thing is, I listened to this one as an audiobook. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I did like the audiobook and the narration of it and such, but I do feel like if I were to read this physically, and if I could annotate it, I would actually enjoy this so much more. This one definitely has potential for being a 4-star read for me, and that's why I bought the book, because I do want to reread it. Far better than I expected it to be. It's my bad that I couldn't appreciate it fully when I was listening to it, because I was sort of stressing it. But I do think on my next read of it, this might be something really good actually. I'm happy I got to it, and I'm very happy I bought it and can reread it. Another audiobook I listened to is So We Meet Again by Suzanne Park. This is an adult romance or contemporary. I think I counted this one mainly as a contemporary, although I think it's marketed as a romance. But for me, there was not really that much romance in it, so for me it's just general fiction. In this story, we're following a woman. She gets fired from her job and she needs to think of something new. She sort of starts this YouTube channel where she hacks meal boxes and make Korean influenced food. Unfortunately for her, she needs to move back home to her parents. She meets up with one of her old crushes. To be honest, not much happened in this book, in my opinion. I didn't really care that much about her venture into the YouTube thing and media and stuff. And romance, as I said, there wasn't really that much romance in this one. Yeah, it wasn't that exciting for me, it wasn't that interesting. I ended up giving this book 2 stars. The next book I read in November was Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. I finally finished this one. I think I started this one in June. I read 30% back then and then I didn't pick it up. I understand why, because this one is really boring. And I feel like I'm gonna get so much hate. People are gonna be really upset about it, but I did not enjoy this book. Which is sad, because I really liked the first book in this duology, Strange the Dreamer. I liked that one so much. I was so surprised by how much I enjoyed Strange the Dreamer. I thought that one was great. This one, it doesn't compare for me. Like, it's boring. First of all, the story, I can barely explain it. The main story of the entire duology is basically about Laszlo Strange, a character who goes on this journey to discover the lost city of Weep, which used to be like a flourishing town that was connected to the gods and stuff like that. But then something happened, and now there are some like demigods or something stuck on top of something. One of those girls communicates through dreams, and she starts communicating with Laszlo, and they fall in love, and yada 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 yada. This is the continuation of Strange the Dreamer. Nothing happens. I don't know, like, this is a very frustrating book. First of all, I really liked Laszlo's character in the first book. They basically just made him into a lovesick puppy in this one. I understand that the characters are in love, but come on! They need to be more interesting and have some more meaning and purpose than just being there for each other and giving each other sweet kisses. Especially in this sort of like high stakes fantasy that this one is supposed to be. Sure, it's lyrical and extremely flubbery in the writing, but still, it's an epic fantasy with so many cool elements to it. And they make him a lovesick puppy when he's the main character. Like, I could literally throw this book. So that's one of my main complaints. The other one is that nothing happens for the first 350 pages or so. The action is in the last 100 pages of the book. Nothing happens, and then everything happens. So the pacing is a tad bit off, if you're asking me. Like, the first 100 pages of the book takes place during the same day, and it's mainly a recap of the first book, which I at first appreciated because I had forgotten a lot of things from the first book because I read it 1 year ago. But it shouldn't be just all recap. There were so many characters in this book, but none of them were given any screen time, I feel like. And there were no conclusions made with those characters. So many characters just got like 1 or 2 chapters. They were made to seem important, and then the author just forgot about them or something. I don't know. What was my review for this one? I'm sure it was ranty. It's literally just recap memories and day-to-day events. The characters don't do anything, and it's so frustrating. Once some things finally start happening, I've already lost interest and don't care about history, legacy, previous characters and all of that. I lost interest in this story, I lost interest in the characters, it was very slow. Strange the Dreamer I like, I gave Strange the Dreamer 4 stars, this one I only gave 2 stars. But I'm glad I at least finished this book, because now I don't have to think about it anymore. The next book I listened to was a Spindle, Splintered by Alex E. Harrow. This is a very short book, I think it's like about 100 pages, it's 3 hours long in audiobook format, and yeah, it's a retelling of Sleeping Beauty. It's about a girl in the contemporary world who has some sort of sickness, so she's expected to die by her 21st birthday, 22nd birthday, I don't quite remember. There's some sort of inside joke that she's basically Sleeping Beauty or something, and then she suddenly ends up in some sort of magical fantasy world. It's quite confusing. It's not really that structured, the story, I feel like, but it was enjoyable. I didn't mind it. I gave it 3 stars. I don't have much to say about it at all because, as I said, it's very short and I perhaps didn't pay that much attention to it. Yeah, it was alright. The next book I listened to was Dial A for Aunties by Jessie Q. Sutanto. This book I loved. This book was incredible, it was amazing, it was stressful, it was hilarious, it was romantic, and it had great family relationships and dynamics. I loved so much about this book. I had a great time listening to it. The audiobook is amazing as well, with all the accents and the dialects. Like, please listen to the audiobook if you're able to. I'm not the person to recommend someone to listen to the audiobook instead of reading the physical copy, but with this book I will be that person. Listen to the audiobook because the audiobook is fun. This story follows a woman, is also very close to her aunties, so like they have a family business together, they arrange weddings, she's the photographer, someone does the makeup, someone does the baking and flowers, like they're a team. And they are of Asian descent, I think it's a mix of Vietnamese and Chinese descent. And this family dynamic in itself is hilarious, it's amazing. She goes on this blind date that ends badly because it ends with an accidental murder. Of course, the entire family steps up, they decide to solve this situation together by hiding the body. Unfortunately, they need to go to a wedding the next day because they're working it, and that body accidentally follows them. So they're running around this resort or this island or something, trying to keep calm and trying to not reveal that they have a body. They are so much fun. They're trying to dispose of this body and they don't know how. In the mix of this huge problem, they can still banter and fight about other things and still try to impress each other and like one-up each other, and it's so fun. Quality right there. Like, if you want a constant panic attack, read this book. Everything just keeps going wrong. And this book is getting a sequel in 2022, which I'm even more excited about. This is the book I ended up giving 5 stars, or 4.5. It's a bit messy at times, but that's like the point of the book. It's supposed to be messy and all over the place, and I appreciate this book so much. The final book I read in November was A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. It's the second book in the ACOTAR series. I just posted a vlog of it actually, so I will link that one. I actually enjoyed this book so much more than the first book in this series. Like, this book, I get why it's everyone's favorite. I honestly expected it to be steamier and like more PvP, which it wasn't, which surprised me. Things only start to happen between the two love interests after like 400 pages. So that was impressive to me. But I really appreciated the development of their relationship and also their dynamics and like their banter and their flirting. It was fun. I liked that relationship. I found the first book to be quite boring, not that interesting. I am a bit conflicted regarding the sudden change of love interest. I don't know why she did it. I definitely prefer the relationship in this one, the characters, the plot and the story in itself. This book was way better than the first one. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. It's not a favorite book. I don't think I will ever continue with this series. I have no interest in reading the 3rd book. I have no interest in reading the 4th book. But I'm glad I read the 2nd book because now I understand the hype. I now better understand the relationship between Feyre and Rhysand. I'm glad I read it. I feel like I at least gained something from it. And that's it for my November wrap-up. I had a great time reading in November. I'm so glad that I'm back into reading. Also a huge shout out to Jane for hosting the Pokemon-a-thon and to Esme for hosting the Desert-a-thon. Those 2 readathons really pushed me to get back into reading. Hopefully I will continue to read a lot in December and also in the next year. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Please take care and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye!
You gotta just go for it. Don't think about what